Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get to Know a Theater. Today, I am joined by Adam Immerwahr, Artistic Director of Village Theater in both Issaquah and Everett. And we'll talk about those two locations here in a little bit. First of all, welcome to the show, Adam.
Thanks so much, Greg. Thanks for having me.
I'm looking forward to this discussion. Love all the stuff you're doing at Village Theater. And in fact, there's a lot going on, a lot of excitement at the theater these days. We're wrapping up the 2023-24 season with Once Upon This Island opening on May 14th in Issaquah. And then you've just recently announced your next season, which looks fantastic, and we'll talk about that. But how has the theater season been? I think this is the first, at least from what I can tell, the first full season out of COVID. So how has attendance been, and how are things doing at the theater?
This is actually Village's second full season post-COVID, but it's the first one that I've had a hand in programming. I arrived in June of 22, so arrived for a season that had been selected by a wonderful group of administrators and artists. And this season was the first that I got to have a hand in. And, you know, it's been going pretty well. Beautiful, the Carole King musical. Proved to be one of the biggest hits in Village's history in terms of single tickets for sure, with pretty rapturous responses. And we've tried some new things that are kind of bold adventures for Village. Village had never done a one-person play, and we did Becoming Dr. Ruth, which our subscribers really fell in love with, both the show and Naomi Jacobson's incredible performance as Dr.
Oh, yeah.
Ruth. So it's been a really wonderful adventure so far this season.
Great. And then looking at next season, you've got Legally Blonde, Dial M for Murder, Color Purple, Jersey Boys, Camelot. Huge variety of shows. Is that what you look to do when you program a season? You look for variety. What's the your general philosophy that you try to weave through a season?
Well, you know, every season you're looking at a combination of shows that the audience knows they want to see and shows that the audience doesn't yet know that they want to see. And depending on where the theater is, where the audience is at any given moment, that ratio can change a little bit. And you might lean a little bit more in one direction. Right now, we're all theaters are continuing to rebuild our numbers after the shutdown. We're continuing to rebuild after, you know, the response that our audience has had to coming back. And so we really invested next season in a season that the audience knows they want to see, or at least that's the hope. With classics like Camelot, modern masterpieces like Jersey Boys, ridiculous romps like Legally Blonde, and then the extraordinary art of Color Purple and the like amazing thrills of Dial M for Murder.
Yeah, that's great. Now, do you when you choose a season? Now that you've got two theaters, so you've got the theater in Issaquah and the one in Everett, and for people who aren't aware, you always open up shows in Issaquah and then they run to Everett after that. So that makes for a longer run than most other theaters that I can think of in the area. Does any of that, the length of run, how that you think shows need to have a little bit more staying power? I mean, does that factor into your choice of shows at all?
Point of information, we actually have four theaters. We have two in Issaquah and two in Everett because our incredible youth education programs are also occupying theaters and doing amazing work year round. But yes, our main stage subscription series happens in one theater in Issaquah, the FJG Francis J. Gaudette Theater, and one theater in Everett, the Everett Performing Arts Center. And the length of run is a huge factor. You know what the biggest factor of it is that all of our shows overlap with each other. And not every theater has that. And here, because of the length of the run, let's say, for example, during the run of Fantastics, let's say, rehearsals started while Becoming Dr. Ruth was still performing in Issaquah. By the time Fantastics opened in Issaquah, Becoming Dr. Ruth was performing in Everett. And now that that Fantastics has moved up to Everett, we're deep into Once on This Island. So I have to think when I program about casting overlaps because we can't, of course, cast the same people in any two adjacent shows because they're fundamentally performing simultaneously, not just rehearsing, but performing simultaneously. So I have to think carefully demographically, types of vocal parts. If I've got like, two tap dancing shows, they can't go next to each other. If I have two shows that rely heavily on the African American theater community, they can't go next to each other. If I have two shows that are going to take all of my classical, musical theater male voices, like a show like Camelot or something like that, I couldn't put it next to another one. The talent pool in Seattle is incredible, but there isn't a huge amount of depth in the musical theater community. That's why one of the great things about it, you see the same people over and over again. So we have to be very careful and very strategic in our programming to make sure we're not competing too much with ourselves.
Mm, good point. Good point. Now, you would know firsthand about a lot of these because you don't just program the season, but you also direct. And you've directed two shows this year, the Fantastics and Sherwood, your opening show of the season. Are you slated to direct any of the shows that you next year?
Yeah, next season I'll be directing Camelot, which is our season opener. And then in the winter, I'm really excited to be directing Dial M for Murder because it's just like totally my kind of play.
Great. Now, do you when you program shows, are you thinking, are you choosing shows that you already know you want to direct, or is it or do you get the shows chosen and then you kind of pick, well, I'd like to direct that one, or I'd like to try this one?
A lot of times there's a director in mind from the moment the show is moving through the process, or that there's a director and early on I say these are some of the shows I'm thinking about, would you be interested in any of them? So they're sort of attached. By the time we get pretty far along, a lot of our directors are pretty well attached. So for instance, the brilliant Timothy Pagay, who's an amazing actor and director in town, you know his work well. I reached out to him early and I said, hey, I'm thinking I might do Legally Blonde. I'm thinking I might do The Color Purple, a couple other things. Any of those really speak out to you? I could see you doing a bunch of them. And he said, oh gosh, I'd love to work on Color Purple. And I said, well, that's great. And so then I was looking at his dates of availability. He's an incredible professor as well, Cornish College of the Arts. So it's a lot easier for him to direct in certain slots than others. And I was looking at his dates of availability when I set the order of the season. Sometimes I have shows that I go, oh my gosh, it would hurt my soul for anyone else to direct that show at this theater. Like Dial M for Murder is certainly one of those. I cut my teeth as a director in big regional theaters doing mysteries and thrillers, and I just love them. I just have so much fun doing Mousetrap or Sleuth or things like
Oh
that.
yeah.
They're just great. So, and audiences love them too. It's just like I don't know why. It's always weird to say I love murder, but that's sort of how it feels. So I knew if we were going to do Dial M for Murder, I just couldn't imagine giving it away. It would be so sad. And then occasionally I have things that I go, this is tricky. I don't have a person quite in mind for it, and it's a really tricky show, and maybe I'll take that one and try to navigate through some of that. And so I would say Fantastics was an example of that. I saw a lot of pitfalls in Fantastics. I saw a lot of potential traps to avoid. And I also sort of had an idea of how one could avoid them. And then, instead of hiring a director and feeling like you're kind of pushing your vision onto them, at that point you go, okay, I'm the jerk who programmed the show. I should take it and do it myself so as not to cause drama or tension or anything like that. And then I have shows that I look at and go, boy, oh boy, am I not the right director for them. And Jersey Boys would be a great example. I wouldn't know what to do with that. That would be terrible. I would be unhappy. Everyone would be unhappy. And there's other shows that maybe I might have an idea, but I'm not the best person for, which like Legally Blonde would be a great example. I'm not the right director for that show. I love it, but I wouldn't. Other people would do it better. So I'm also thinking about that.
Well, it's good to know your strengths and weaknesses for sure. And speaking of strengths, one of the things when you look through your resume, one of the things that stands out to me is not just your ability to program, but the financial management of the theaters that you've been able to bring to the table, balancing budgets, things like that, and especially in these challenging times coming out of COVID. I think that's a skill that has to have come to the fore that you bring to Village. And so how have you been able to apply that to the environment coming out of COVID at Village?
Well, I think it's really important to understand that in any instance in which I've been in a theater leadership position, I've been partnered with an incredible managing director, whether it was at Theater J, my last theater, or here at Village. And so that's always a partnership. Financial management is always depends on both of the leaders. Theater, as you know, works in almost all cases a bifurcated management structure with two leaders, one managing director, one artistic director, both reporting equally to the board. But I always see the really important role the artistic director has in the financial health of an organization. They have that role in fundraising, in making sure that they're a face of the theater and a face of fundraising, and people get excited to support a vision and to support an idea for what art can do in their community. And the artistic director is often the person most poised to make that case, the case for social good for our institutions. I see that role in programming, and there's years and years ago, a wonderful artistic director who inspires me so much. I had a meeting with this person about something, and they said, Adam, sometimes when I'm programming, I have to think, one for them, one for me, one for them, one for me, and sometimes it's two for them, one for me. And I thought to myself, why are they any for you? It should be all for them. That's what we're doing, right? And this is an important part of artistic direction. I might like it too, but we're programming for our communities. We are a service industry for our communities, and hopefully we are engaging artists incredibly who are thrilled and excited to make art for our communities. So the role of an artistic director in programming is a huge part of audience regrowth, of financial management. And then, as an artistic director, I've always had a pretty heavy role in oversight of education and production departments. And so in that capacity, it's always the case that you can make whatever budgets you want, but when the artists come in and say, it's never going to work, we can only make up a show, we can only do Crazy for You if we have 6 turntables and, every trapdoor and every piece of flying scenery imaginable. It's all going to fail if we don't do it. Ultimately, if the artistic director says, oh gosh, you're right, yes, of course, we'll do it, your budgets don't matter anymore. And so also the ability to find artists who can work within resources and then support them to work within those resources and help them to do so is such a critical part of the financial oversight of a theater.
For sure. And you mentioned education, and you talked about this before with the other theaters that Village has in Issaquah and Everett. Can you talk a little bit about your youth education program?
I would love to. Village's youth education program is amazing. And the longer I've been in this Pacific Northwest region, the more I've come to realize that over and over again. We cast people, they're great, and then I find out a quarter of the cast grew up in our Kids Stage program. And then I go see a show at Fifth Avenue and a quarter of that cast grew up in our Kids Stage program. Both in Issaquah and Everett, we have these incredible, rich, essentially performing arts academies running. There's after school classes, there's summer camps, and then there's these year-long institutes where kids are honing and developing skills. And in Everett, they're working under the supervision, there's a bunch of teachers, but the supervision of the brilliant Aaron Norman, whose work as a vocal director and music director you've probably seen all over town.
For sure,
and
yeah.
a performer, I'm sure, as well. And Aaron, they've got those kids directing each other, music directing, choreographing. They're turning out artists. It's really amazing to watch. And in Issaquah, they're applying all these incredible improvisation skills. They're learning tap, they're learning dance. There's this incredible hunger in both cities in slightly different flavors to learn more and more about the craft of theater from these students who are so dedicated and passionate. And then if I can just go on a second longer about this, because I'm so excited about it. This is a very unusual education program. We have once a year in one of our 2 venues, we essentially hand the keys over to the kids. And we say, now go make some art. And we give them a list of options of shows they can make art on. And we select the group of kids. And then they select each other after that. And they direct, they choreograph, they music direct, they build, they market, they do every component of making theater. They're hanging the lights, they're running the light board, they're doing all elements of design, they're playing in the pit. And these teenagers are making this art by themselves with lots of mentorship, but really their decisions. And that's so unusual and amazing. And we pair that with lots of other education programs where we're bringing in some of the top professional artists in the city to direct and choreograph them. So for instance, last summer in Everett, our students got to perform Guys and Dolls on our main stage under the direction of Katie Tabb, who's right now choreographing Spring Awakening at the Fifth and just did Fantastics for us, and
Hmm.
will be back next season for more shows for us. And this is a major choreographer in town. RJ Tancioko, who music directs everywhere in this city, music directs their shows in Issaquah sometimes. I mean, they're getting to work with truly top tier artists. It's a really cool program.
That's amazing. Yeah, and well, one of the things you guys also do, as far as fostering new art, is your new works program as well. And I believe How to Break last year was part of that. And I know that a pretty renowned program that Village has.
Yeah, and the truth is, new works development is really been one of the areas that has suffered the most after the shutdown. A lot of places dedicated to new works or with important wings for new work development have either shut down. Think about the Lark, new play development programs in New York. You think about the Humana Festival at Actors Theater of Louisville. Programs are closing. It is not a growth moment for new works development in this country. So every year, Village has a festival of new musicals. This year, it's going to be August 2nd through 4th, and for the first time ever, it's going to be free to attend the readings, so that anyone can come. Well, if you can get a ticket, because we've never tried it being free before, so we're going to see how that goes. And then there'll be some options to buy up and attend more panels and get to meet the writers more and get a little more involved and invested in it, and to invest in the work. And we'll be developing 4 new musicals, and they're so good. I can't wait to tell people about them. They're just incredible pieces of theater with amazing artists, and some of them might end up on our main stage someday, but also some of them are going to go out into the world and have incredible lives and have been slightly shaped, one piece of their development, one step along their way, by having had a chance to pull together a reading and hear the show with our incredible Pacific Northwest actors, with some of our amazing music directors, being in the room with these artists, these writers for a week, and asking questions and trying things out and lending their voices to the work itself. And that's gonna make a mark on these pieces that will be able to carry with them for the rest of their lives.
Great. And you mentioned the PNW theater community. You're fairly new to it, having just been here the last couple of years. How have you found it? Have you found it welcoming? Have you found? I mean, I know there's super amount of talent around here. I think that goes without saying. But as far as the community aspect of it, how have you found it?
Oh, it's been incredible. There isn't a theater leader in town that I don't feel like I could pick up the phone and call, and some of whom I'm regularly in touch with, to sometimes commiserate and sometimes share ideas, ask questions. I'm really blessed. Obviously, with Fifth Avenue being the other major musical theater house in this town, to have such a great relationship with their leadership that we can call each other. We can say, "Hey, what are you planning?" Like, I just want to make sure we're not calling for tap dancers at the same time, And next year's season, we actually there are shows that are in specific slots because we coordinated with the Fifth, and they moved things, we moved things to make sure that not only are we not competing with each other, but also we're giving, I'm making up the example of tap dancing actors, but we're giving tap dancing actors a chance to be in 2 shows and not have to decide between one. So that's been really incredibly supportive. Of course, like, I am both a part of the theater community and also not a part of it. As a gatekeeper, as someone who makes decisions about who gets hired and doesn't get hired, as someone who lives out here in the mountains, I try to see as much as I can, and I try to get to know folks, but also I have to always understand and respect that theater community exists as an ecosystem that
Hmm.
I am a part of, but always will be a complicated part of, because of my role, and that's as it should be.
Yeah, and what you said, I think, is so important that we can't look at it as though theaters are in competition with each other, because especially with the competition is the couch at home and the streaming and all these other choices that people have to get out to the theater. Working together as a community lifts everybody up.
Well, and I'll keep on Fifth for a second as an example. I love the shows at Fifth Avenue. I go all the time. I see everything they produce. And Fifth wouldn't be in the position it is with the actors it has if we weren't here, and vice versa. because it is because of both of us that we can support a robust musical theater talent pool in this community. Neither of us could do it on our own. If you were a tap dancer, you just might not have enough work if there was only one of the two. But with both of them, you get enough tap shows. I mean, actually, tap is a terrible example. There aren't that many tap shows anymore, but you get enough that you have a shot at being in enough shows to fill your year, to make a living, to truly feel like you can exist here as a theater artist. And it's one of the great risks with the closure of theaters like Book It, and other closures that have happened in Seattle over the years. The ecosystem is robust and also fragile, and always will be.
So how can people, if they're interested in auditioning for shows at Village, are there audition notices on your website? How do those folks get notified or get involved there?
Yeah, so we have our open auditions every year. It's usually in February or March. So we've already had them for this year. And that's when we really open the doors up and we see anyone who wants to be seen. You could be union or not union. We will give you a chance to come in, do your dancing if you want, if that's what you want to do your singing. And we put those up on our website for sure. We usually blast it on social media as well. And of course, it usually appears on, Actors Equity's website, and often Backstage in Broadway World, they post it there, and other places like that. Playbill, I think. I don't know all the places it goes. But the best place to do is to look in our website come sort of January, February, March, April. That's the window that it will be. And we always give advance notice. And we'll do, 4 to 6 days, I don't know exactly how many, of auditions. And then we also attend Theater Puget Sound has these combined auditions for all the companies to come together, and we attend those as well. And so those are some of the great ways that we get people on our radar. And then the artistic staff here scout. So, we had a staff member just up in Bainbridge seeing the production of Cabaret down there. I'm looking forward to seeing the prom down in Tacoma in a few months. That's directed by Harry Turpin, who's one of our artists who just worked with us this season. So we go and see work and notice people. One of the artists that we're going to be working with next season for the first time was recently actually, even a better example is Kavika Houston, who is starring in The Fantastics right now. We sort of discovered him down at the community theater in Tacoma, playing some roles, I think, in Cinderella there, and brought him up and auditioned him, and then he understudied for the role of the prince in our production of Cinderella and was in the ensemble. He then went on to understudy at the Fifth Avenue for Little Mermaid, and now he's playing a lead role in Fantastics. And we're sort of about to repeat that pattern with another actor next season. So we go out and look for people as well.
Yeah, that's great, because I can say, without a doubt, that from Bainbridge, you can go all the way through around the peninsula through Tacoma. There's so much talent out there, and it's great that they've got the opportunity, that there's not a barrier that they can actually see. We had there's an actor that I've seen grow up here in Port Orchard who's going to be in Spring Awakening at the Fifth, and it's great to see these stories.
Yeah, it's that's one of the things I really enjoy about the team here at Village, is they see their role in casting as both a submission role, like people can come in and present themselves in auditions, but also a search role that we go out and we find people and we identify talent. And some of the members of our artistic staff here really make an effort to see as much as they humanly can, and it's really inspiring to watch. And I try to see as much as I can as well.
Great. You mentioned fundraising, and I obviously one revenue stream for the theater is ticket sales. And I guess on the website, can people donate? Can they sign up for volunteer positions? How can people help out with the theater?
Yes, all of the above. They can buy tickets, of course. They can buy group tickets and organize groups of people to come. That's a huge benefit, especially if it's new people who haven't been to the theater before. That's like, in some ways, the best thing someone can do is to bring a person to the theater who has not been to any given theater before and introduce us to a new customer. They can certainly donate, and there's loads of ways to do that on our website. There's also volunteer opportunities for ushering, which is a way you get to come volunteer for the theater and also see all the shows. So kind of like the best volunteer gig in the world. Dress like a penguin, hand out some programs, help people out who need your help, and then get to see a show. What could be better? So there's loads of ways to get involved, and like all theaters, ticket sales cover only a portion of the work that we do at Village. And if we actually tried to have our ticket sales cover everything, the ticket cost would be exorbitant. So donations help allow it to be affordable, allow us to have pay what you can nights for those who cannot afford the standard price of a ticket, allow us to offer student rates, participate in things like Teen Tix, and allow us to make sure our artists are being fully supported as best as we can, both in their salaries and in their resources they have and in the tools they need to work with. So it's an incredible gift to the theater when someone decides to contribute.
Yeah, and if just going to the theater, I could say I haven't been to your theater in Everett, so I've been a little lax there, but I know, I know. But Issaquah, I mean, you can't get a nicer town, little downtown than Issaquah. So you go, you see a show, you hang out in town, go to any number of great restaurants. It's well worth the afternoon, and I'm saying that I would gladly drive there from where I'm based in Port Orchard, which is an over an hour to go there, and just hang out. So yeah, go to the show. We'll link everything in the notes for the interview here, as far as how people can get out to the website, your social media handles, etc.
And I'll offer Everett is a really cool town as well. It's not cute in the same way, but there's amazing restaurants. I'm like just obsessed with some of them up there. There's an incredible, vibrant art scene. There's like graffiti artists making work. There's like amazing, weird, interesting stores all over the place. And there's just this sense in Everett of a city that is dedicated to art and is devoted to art and is coming up in some really interesting ways and using art as the tool to do that. And it's really inspiring to see.
Okay, well, you've sold me. I've got to get up there. But Adam, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I've loved everything. Hello, Dolly, your production last year still sticks with me as one of the best that I've seen since I've been out here. But they're all good. I haven't seen a bad one there. So I'm looking forward to next season as well.
Well, thank you, Greg. Really, really grateful to get a chance to talk to you.
So to all of you out there watching, my guest has been Adam Immerwahr, Artistic Director of Village Theater. Thank you for joining me on another edition of Get to Know a Theater. And until the next time, I will see you at the stage door.